What's up, guys? Brady Figuel here. It's time to talk about my top 10 albums of 2025. 2025 was an awesome year for literally all rock and metal subgenres. I remember when I was putting this list together last year, it was relatively easy to pick 10 albums, whereas this year it was just so difficult. So please do check the description of the video for my next 10 honorable mentions, and I will give a quick shout out to And Ocean's, Shadow of Intent, and The Halo Effect for just barely missing out on this top 10 list. I also did reviews of all 10 of these records, all of which I will leave in the description as well. So let's get into it with my number 10 pick, which is Between the Buried and Me with The Blue Nowhere. These guys are one of my absolute favorite prog bands, and it was just so awesome to see them put out this good of a record, not only this far into their career, but especially now that they function as a four-piece. The two-guitar arrangement has always been, for me, one of the most interesting aspects of BT Band's music. I was just so thrilled to hear how good this record sounds stylistically, and the fact that they really haven't lost a step is a testament to this band's talent. Some of the most creative material to date from them is on this record. I mean, you have the emotive ideas in a song like the title track, the funk influence in the Things We Tell Ourselves in the Dark, the lead single, and you have a song like Absent Thereafter, which manages to feel explorative, yet it also feels like it was ripped right off of the Colors track list. This is just another thrilling progressive metal record, as we've come to expect from Between the Buried and Me. Number 9 is Chevelle with Bright as Blasphemy. This is another band that's been around for 25 years now, at least. And it amazes me that they're still putting out material of this caliber. I especially liked hearing the band get back into more of a straightforward, heavy direction, especially after the kind of art rock detour of their last record. For one, they're just writing heavier, more aggressive music again. Take a track like Wolves, for instance. But the production as well is definitely the most beefed up, metaled up production that we've heard on a Chevelle record. Another thing that really jumped out to me on this record was Pete Loeffler's vocal performance. He essentially carries the entire song, Hallucinations, but it never feels like the vocals are the only thing going on. They just do a really good job of progressing the song. I'll make a similar point about the track Blood Out in the Fields, which is like this exotic, dark folk track almost, super unique track in the Chevelle catalog. And the band just sounds so confident on these songs. This might be their boldest record to date, I would even argue. The quintessential deathcore record for me this year was To Rid Myself of Truth by Signs of the Swarm. That's my number 8 pick. This year was an awesome year for deathcore with efforts from Psycho Frame and Whitechapel and Angelmaker, but this was the record for me. Right off the bat, I love the overall sound to it. It managed to sound so modern, yet so rough around the edges and heavy and hard hitting all at once. Right off the bat, you hear just the explosiveness that the production brings to the table on the title track. And then the songs themselves are just so dynamic and so unpredictable. Songs like Chariot and Scars Upon Scars are just non-stop evolving the entire time, and the parts themselves are so memorable. And I also really love the band's injection of a little melody on this album. Most notably the track Forcing to Forget, which has some clean vocals that are really well done and fit the overall aesthetic of this record and maintain that it's a deathcore record. Of all the albums on this list, this is definitely the one that I worked out to the most. It's got the grooves, it's got the dynamics, it's got the heaviness. It's everything that I personally look for in a deathcore record. My number 7 pick came out all the way back in January. Vacant Home, their album Can You Show Me Who I Am. Even like way back in January when I first heard it and when I first fell in love with this album, like I knew it had to make this list. I would describe this album as a very sonically dark take on post-hardcore. Just the atmosphere of this record is just completely entrancing. It has a lot of like dissonant, droning melodies, and the guitars in particular are produced so well. They ring on, and it just brings such an amazing, rich atmosphere yet again. They managed to make themselves sound so like full and saturated on certain tracks on here, and then there's other tracks where they sound like just really barren and skeletal, like a track like Weathered. The emotions shine through beautifully on these songs, whether it's the tension of a track like Knife's Edge or the almost bittersweet despair of the track The Only Place I Felt Fine Was With You. The song Lilac Reflection was one of my absolute favorite songs of the year. I absolutely fell in love with that track. Just such a beautiful song. If I could recommend any of these 10 albums the most for you to listen to, it has to be this one, just because of how underrated I think this album is. Next up at number 6 is Spirit Box with Tsunami Sea. I am totally, completely behind this band. I love that they're pretty much being widely acknowledged as the future of metal and as a modern face of modern, not just metalcore, but metal as a whole. This band is just so good at being crushingly heavy when they need to be and bringing in the melody when they should. On one hand, you have tracks like Soft Spine and No Loss, No Love and Black Rainbow, which are just absolutely relentless. And on the other hand, you have a song like the really rich Perfect Soul or the spacey track Crystal Roses. Then you have equally as amazing songs like A Haven with Two Faces, which might be my favorite, or the opener Fata Morgana that do both at the same time, and it's all executed so well. The production is amazing, as was the last Spirit Box record. And what else is there to say about vocalist Cornelia Plant? She's without question one of the best vocalists in modern metal today, and she proves it again on this record. Number 5 is Thrice. Their album Horizons West. These guys are one of my favorite bands of all time, and this is the follow-up and sequel to Horizons East that came out a few years ago. This is just another phenomenal addition to this band's already amazing catalog. I do like how with this record, they definitely made it a bit more rock-oriented, whereas the last two kind of went into more of like that art rock, that artsy type sound, which I loved. But at the same time, it was refreshing to hear more of like a heavier influence creep in that especially comes to life on a track like the lead single Nash, which is borderline metallic. A track like Crooked Shadow is just so full of energy. Also Blackout, which starts out a lot more calm and subdued and then evolves into being really layered and full of energy. The more melodic attempts on this album are fucking awesome, most notably Undertow. I love that main key line that drives the song. There's also the experimenting on a track like Vesper Light, which has some falsetto vocals from vocalist Dustin Kensrue that were performed great. And with this album, Thrice continues to make some of the most compelling and interesting music in modern rock. Next up at number 4 is an album that I just reviewed a few weeks ago, Astronoid, their 4th album, Star God. Even though I haven't had a whole lot of time with this record, especially compared to the other ones on this list, I know that this album is going to be my end of 2025 soundtrack. For one, because I've been listening to it nonstop since it dropped. But some albums you just associate with certain times in your life and you know you're going to get nostalgic about it. I don't know if anyone else has that feeling, but this is that record for right now for me. I love this band's super unique sound, which is really spacey and almost like ethereal. Maybe the thing that makes them most unique is that their primary emotion is happiness and positivity. It just radiates through all of these songs. And the coolest part of this record for me, which kind of came out of left field, but it just works so well, is the injection of all the 80s influences. It could be some 80s metal on a track like Third Shot, the lead single. It's all over the title track on your Star God, which is my favorite song on here. I just absolutely love the melodies there. And I just love this band's style. They truly sound like no other band. I love how on a song like Love Weapon on here, the band can still maintain that positivity and that radiance in the mood of their tracks, but they can still do it while having some great riffs. I'm really happy to see that they seem to be growing with each release, and to me, this is their best album to date. Number 3, I'm giving to Killswitch Engage with this consequence. Killswitch Engage is like my favorite metal band, period. I have a bunch of their album covers tattooed as a sleeve on my left leg. And I have a special allegiance to this record, not just because I'm such a huge Killswitch fan, but because of all the people who are fucking whining about this record. It's just basic Killswitch. It sounds like any other Killswitch record. Are you listening to the same record as I am? I mean, the entire second half is by far the most extreme Killswitch has ever sounded. I mean, The Fall of Us is essentially a full-on death metal song with a crushing deathcore style breakdown at the end. And I guess sort of a clean chorus, but the chorus still has blast beats behind it. Like, same thing with Broken Glass. I mean, people were complaining about how this album didn't take any risks, but then the song on here that takes the most risk is the one that everyone bitched about. Like, it makes no sense. And that song fucking rips too. It's like this crushing combination of sludge metal and death metal. The band really cranks up the thrash influence on here on a track like Discoordination or Requiem, which has that awesome sick opening groove. The main groove on Collusion is an absolute monster, and I love the odd time chorus. And then you have, a few songs that are straightforward Killswitch, like the opener Abandon Us, which is equally as great. I love the melodies on the track Aftermath. That's another favorite of mine. This is just, as a major Killswitch fan, this gave me exactly what I wanted to hear. And I feel like anybody who didn't like this record is just still mad that Howard isn't in the band anymore. So I guess you guys got a rant alongside my number 3 pick there. But yeah, love the fucking record. And to me, it was worth the wait. And now we're on to my top 2. These 2 records are the only 2 records I've ever given perfect 30 out of 30 scores for in my review. The first of which that I'm putting at the number 2 spot is Abigail Williams and the record A Void Within Existence. Literally everything I could possibly ask for in a modern black metal record. The whole thing maintains this chilling, eerie vibe, which I absolutely love in my black metal. And maybe the best part about it is just all of the subgenre blending. Death metal comes in on the opener Life Disconnected. Later on, Still Nights has a really blatant thrash influence. The closer, No Less Than Death, has like an Agalloch-esque post-metal influence. But then also when this record just goes for straight-ahead black metal, it absolutely knocks it out of the park, like the lead single Non-Existence, which for one has some amazing, amazing lead guitar work. But I just love the up and down dynamics of this song. It's a roller coaster the entire time. It's crushingly heavy 1 second, and then it's just completely stripped down, skeletal, clean guitars in another part. And then the track Void Within, which is the most straightforward black metal type song on here, is, to me, the best song on the record. I just love the dark melodies. I cannot recommend this album enough for black metal and extreme metal fans, and for non-black metal and non-extreme metal fans. That's just how good it is. And now my 2025 album of the year. Call me a basic bitch all you want, but it's gotta be Deftones and their album Private Music. I've been a Deftones fan for about 10 years now, and I understand that, giving context, that isn't that long, but even just being a fan for a few years before their resurgence started to begin, it's been so satisfying seeing just how big their second win has been. I don't think any band ever has had as much of a second win as Deftones. And this is their first record since that has happened. And to me, they absolutely knocked it out of the park. What this record did is it took all of the things that I loved about Deftones' music the most up to this point and made that like the focal point of the record. And what I'm talking about is the emphasis on atmosphere in this record. It's always played a pretty large part in Deftones' music, but they've always been like backed by still very guitar-driven or vocal-driven music. Whereas on this record, it just feels like the entire band, the entire production crew, everything together is just creating this unique atmosphere. That's evident in the production, how the vocals and the guitars are produced. It's evident in a lot of just the playing itself, how the guitars, the rhythm guitars in particular, take on more of like a droning quality, which is really present on the lead single My Mind is a Mountain, the chorus of Souvenir, also Locked Club, that chorus. The heavy parts feel like they have just as much atmosphere at times as the melodic cuts, but for me, it's the melodic parts, the melodic songs on here that shine the most. Like I Think About You All the Time is just this encapsulating, like, waltz-like ballad of sorts. The aforementioned Souvenir is amazing. That snarling guitar riff in the chorus is just so fucking catchy. And you have songs that make this album, in my opinion, their most forward-thinking record since White Pony. Like the closer, Departing the Body, is just this gloomy post-metal track, which sounds completely unique in Deftones' catalog, especially Chino's lower register, kind of almost spoken word part. And then on the flip side, Infinite Source is this really bright, post-hardcore influence type song. This record is the perfect balance of new and fresh, yet familiar and welcome. The performances are amazing, the writing is amazing, the production is amazing, and this record was an absolute cornerstone of my 2025. I really think it dropped at like the perfect time, given just context of my life and what I did this year. And there's no record that I think will remind me of 2025 as much as Private Music will 5, 10, 15 years from now. And that's all I have for you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave your top 10 lists in the comments below. If you haven't heard any of these records, I highly, highly recommend all of them, as well as the next 10 that, like I mentioned earlier, in the description of the video. Also, be sure to check out my reviews that I did on all of these records, which will also be in the description. And hit the subscribe button. Stay tuned for a lot more content next year. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace.